Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the What to Expect on the March 2025 CFP exam. The webinar will begin shortly. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our What to Expect webinar. My name is Ibi Layi-Ojo. I'm the Director of Examinations at CFP Board, and I am delighted to be your host for today's session. Also presenting today is Amanda Zapata, our Senior Manager, Marketing Acquisitions, James Taylor, our Manager of Examinations, and Jenna Wyly, our Examination Specialist. Eric Nepomuceno, our Senior Manager of Examinations, will answer questions posted in the Q&A box throughout the session. So feel free to pop in your questions in the Q&A box. Whether you are considering taking the CFP exam or you have already embarked on your journey towards certification, you are in the right place. During this presentation, we will cover what awaits you on exam day. We'll talk through your exam day experience before, during, and after testing. Before we dive into the details, let's take a look at what's on the agenda for today's webinar. First, we'll provide you with an overview of the CFP exam. Next, we'll delve into the details of your exam appointment so you know exactly what you'll be facing on exam day. Following that, we'll share some valuable tips and strategies to help you prepare effectively for the CFP exam. We understand that preparing for such a rigorous examination can be challenging, and we're here to provide you with the tools you need to succeed. Then we'll provide you with information on additional resources, including study materials, practice exams, and support networks that can be immensely valuable during your CFP exam journey. Finally, we'll address the frequently asked questions about the CFP exam. We encourage you to participate in the Q&A session by posting your question in the Q&A box, and you can ask us any questions that you have. And we promise to do our very best to provide you with clear and insightful answers. Now, let's get started. The CFP exam is available in an 8-day window. The March 2025 exam will be administered between March 18 through 25, 2025. The CFP exam is available both in testing centers nationwide and remotely. For further information on remote proctoring, check the remote proctoring page on the CFP Board website. You still have time to register before the early deadline for an exam registration price of $825. Don't forget to have your coursework verified by the education verification deadline on February 25. The CFP Certification Examination assesses your ability to integrate and apply a broad base of financial planning knowledge in the context of real-life financial planning situations. The exam content requires the use of critical thinking and problem solving, with less emphasis on factual recall or recognition. Exam questions are written by volunteer subject matter experts based on the outcome of a practice analysis of personal financial planning. The analysis defines the principal knowledge domains that serve as a blueprint for developing the content of the exam. Each of the 170 exam questions that you will answer are linked directly to at least one of the principal knowledge topics. The approximate percentage of content coverage on the exam is indicated on the screen. The CFP exam is a computer-based exam consisting of 170 multiple choice questions administered during the course of 2 3-hour sessions. Your appointment duration is 7 hours with 6 hours of testing time. You will be able to move through the exam at your own pace within each of the 3-hour test section. 3 hours will be provided for the first 85 questions, and another 3 hours are provided for the last 85 questions. Each section is subdivided into 2 subsections, and candidates may take an optional unscheduled break after question 43 of the first subsection. You will also be able to take a 40-minute break in between sections, as well as any unscheduled breaks as needed. You will answer 3 different question types on the exam. They are the stand-alone questions, the short scenario questions, and questions based on a case study. Standalone questions are typically 2 to 3 sentences long with 4 answer options to select from. Scenario-based questions are associated with multiple exam questions, typically 3 questions per scenario. You will see the scenario on the left side of the screen with 1 question at a time, showing up on the right side of the screen. Case study questions are like scenario-based questions, but they're longer, with the case study scenario covering several pages, and then typically 8 to 12 questions per case study. Now, next, James will cover exam day tips so you are ready.
Thank you, Ibi. Several days before your exam appointment, review the directions to your test center and practice the route you will take to the location. Be sure to arrive 30 minutes before your scheduled appointment. This will provide ample time for the check-in procedures. Also review and become familiar with Prometric's emergency and rescheduling policies. You can find this information on the inside cover of your exam candidate handbook. Make sure you know what to expect if your appointment is canceled. If something unexpected happens before, during, or after your exam that impacts your ability to test, please call CFP Board immediately. Do not begin your exam. Instead, contact CFP Board and remain at the test center. If you have a remote appointment and experience technical difficulties for an extended period of time, please contact CFP Board. Additionally, please do not schedule any trips or vacations immediately after your scheduled appointment. If your appointment is canceled, you will need to be available during a limited window for rescheduling. Next, let's talk about what to bring to the exam. You'll need to bring a government-issued ID and 1 or more financial calculators. Your ID must be one of the approved types of identification, which include a valid driver's license, a valid government-issued ID card, a valid passport, or a U.S. military ID card. The photo ID must also contain your signature. We encourage you to review your ID ahead of time to confirm that it has not expired. Be sure the name on your ID directly matches the name you registered for your exam. Your first and last name should match what is listed within your CFP Board account. Remember to check your ID prior to exam day. If there is an inconsistency with the name on your identification and the name you registered for the CFP exam with, please contact CFP Board before your exam. Bring one or more battery-powered, non-programmable, dedicated financial function calculators. While testing is in session, you are prohibited from accessing electronic devices other than an acceptable calculator. You will be able to store other electronic devices in your locker, but will not be able to access them while testing is in session. Any food, drinks other than water, or review notes that you bring to the test center will not be allowed in the exam room. You may store them in your locker and can only access them during your scheduled 40-minute break. Calculators containing visible formulas must be covered. You will not be allowed to bring the calculator into the testing room if formulas are visible on the reverse side of the calculator. You may cover up formulas with black electrical tape or by taping blank paper over the formulas. A link to the calculator policy is listed in the reference section at the end of this webinar. Now, Jenna will review the check-in process.
Thank you, James. During the check-in process, the test center administrators will review your ID, visually check glasses if you wear them, ask you to sign in, assign you a locker, capture your photo, do a brief body scan, review your calculator, and show you to your seat. For the body scan, you'll be asked to show arms and ankles, as well as empty your pockets from the agreed safe distance area. You will have access to your locker during your scheduled break. You will not have access to your locker while you are testing. Prometric will provide you with a scratch paper booklet and pencils. The test center administrator will review your calculator and ask you to clear any stored memory. Please review the CFP Board calculator policy for a list of approved calculators. Also, be sure to review the functions for clearing your calculator memory and become proficient in restoring your preferred calculator settings. For example, know how to set begin and end functions for time value of money calculations. No other materials are allowed at your workstation during the exam. The tax tables and formulas will be made available to you as an on-screen resource while taking the exam. Printed copies will not be allowed in the testing room. Other prohibited items include food, notes of any kind, electronic devices, except for the approved calculator, and personal headphones. Prometric permits water in a clear bottle with a lid or cap in the testing room. After you check in, the test center administrator will show you to your assigned workstation. Noise-canceling headphones will be available upon request from the test center administrator. Any notes that you take will be collected and are not permitted to leave the exam room. Security of the exam is vital and protected by active proctoring and monitoring of video camera surveillance. The digital video recordings are retained until after exam results are official. Before the exam, you will be asked to accept the CFP Certification Exam Pledge Agreement, making a commitment to behave ethically before, during, and after the exam. Please familiarize yourself with the agreement provided to exam candidates before the start of the exam session. Failure to accept the agreement will disqualify you from taking the exam, forfeiting the exam fee. During the exam, candidates are permitted to take unscheduled breaks to use the restroom or get a drink of water. Please be aware that during unscheduled breaks, no additional time is provided. You may not access your locker, phone, or study materials. You will also be subject to another check-in process upon your return. To request a break, raise your hand so the test center administrator comes to your workstation to properly check you out of the exam. Halfway through your appointment, there is a scheduled 40-minute break. The exam will begin automatically after the 40-minute break time expires. Please be sure to return to your seat before time expires. The system will give you 2 pop-ups to ensure you are ready to end your break. If you skip your break, stop testing and contact CFP Board immediately. If you are testing remotely and would like to take any break, including your scheduled 40-minute break, you must alert your remote proctor in the chat box. Do not leave the room until your proctor confirms you may take a break. If you leave the room without alerting your proctor, your exam may be terminated. At the end of each section, you will encounter the end of section screen. The end of each section provides an opportunity for you to take an unscheduled break between sections. Remember, the timer will not stop during unscheduled breaks. If you do not need a break, you can click the Next button to continue to the next section. You will encounter 2 confirmation messages when you end each section. If you have not answered all of the questions in the section, the message will inform you of this. Once you finish the section, you will not be able to return to this part of the exam to review questions. Be sure to review questions marked for review before proceeding to the next section. If additional time remains after all exam questions have been answered, you may review your work from section 2B only. You may submit your exam for scoring before your final 3 hours have expired. Before submitting, you will be asked, "Are you sure you want to submit your exam for scoring?" Once you click yes, your exam session is ended and you cannot return to view your exam. You will answer a short survey, and then your preliminary results will be displayed. You will also receive an email from Prometric with a copy of your preliminary results. When you are done, you will exit the testing room and report to the test center administrator. At that point, you can retrieve your personal belongings from your locker and return your locker key. A timer is available in the top center of your exam screen. The timer shows both the remaining time in the section and the total time remaining on the exam. Note how you can toggle between the options by clicking on the timer. Having the correct amount of time showing on your screen will allow you to properly pace yourself and ensure you answer all the questions in the specific section you are in. If you select the option for total time remaining, please note that this includes the 3 minutes allocated for the survey at the end. Section 2 will end when there are 3 minutes remaining. The CFP Certification Exam is a pass or fail exam. Each test question counts for 1 point. Passing is based on the candidate's total score across all sections of the exam. Preliminary results are provided to you immediately after taking the exam. Official results are provided to candidates by email approximately 4 weeks following the close of the testing window. Candidates who pass the exam will receive a congratulatory email with instructions for completing the certification process. If you do not pass, you'll receive a diagnostic report of your exam performance across the principal knowledge domains, with indications of your relative strengths and weaknesses so that you know where to focus your studies for the next time you take the exam. Red areas had weaker performance, while green areas had stronger performance. CFP Board does not disclose official exam results over the phone, by text, or by fax. You can become familiar with the exam software features by taking CFP Board's free sample exam, available at cfp.net/sample exam. The sample exam includes a tutorial of how to use the testing software, as well as 10 sample questions. You may take the sample exam as many times as you like. Now, Amanda will cover preparing for the exam.
Thanks, Jenna. CFP Board has two 170-question practice exams that you can use to help you prepare for the CFP exam. The practice exams mirror the format and content coverage of the CFP exam, providing a replica of what you will see on exam day. This is a mock exam that will boost your confidence on exam day. Be sure to set aside 7 hours to complete the practice exam. This includes your 40-minute scheduled break. Upon completion, you'll receive a diagnostic result report showing your performance in each principal knowledge domain, which you can use to address knowledge gaps as you continue studying. The first practice exam is complimentary with your exam registration and can be accessed in your online account. CFP Board has also put together a couple of additional resources to help as you prepare for the exam that are available for download on our website. The Candidate Handbook is a quick reference tool for exam-related questions in one convenient location. It addresses topics covered in this webinar and provides additional information on registration, scheduling, exam preparation, and what to expect on exam day. The How to Build a CFP Exam Study Strategy Guide helps candidates gain an understanding of the steps to effectively study in preparation for the CFP exam. This resource page also contains the guidance and regulatory change documents, including Secure 2.0 Act provisions. And don't forget about the mentor program, which is designed to help as you prepare for the exam by connecting with a CFP professional. Mentors can help you focus on time management, study strategy, staying motivated, dealing with work-life balance, and more. The deadline to request a mentor for the March exam is January 24th. For more information, please visit cfp.net/mentor. If you have any additional questions about preparing for the CFP exam or want to talk with someone at CFP Board about your preparation strategy, you can reach out to our team of candidate advocates at Get Certified 2025 at cfpboard.org. We also have our online candidate forum where you can connect with other candidates and obtain useful tips and guidance in preparation for the exam. We encourage you to join online conversations or read through posts and testimonials on how others prepared for the exam. You may even find groups of people to virtually study with. All you need is your CFP Board account to access this online forum. You can log in at candidateforum.cfp.net. If you are retaking the CFP exam, congratulations on keeping up your momentum toward this exciting milestone. We encourage you to use CFP Board's exam prep resources to help you reach your potential. CFP Board staff, mentors, and other candidates are here to support you on your journey to CFP certification. I know I just mentioned the candidate forum, but your peers are also available to support you. The candidate forum has a lot of great discussions and stories from others on the path to taking the exam and discussing how they stayed motivated for another attempt and what they changed in their study plan. I encourage you to take a real look at what you're doing to study and align that with what you know about going into exam day. You may need to change things up. Please feel free to review these documents mentioned throughout the webinar. These are important resources for exam candidates. This webinar will be available on our website within a week, so you can also access these references at that point. Now we will pause for a few minutes to review and answer any pending questions that were submitted during the webinar. All right, Eric, looks like we have some questions from the audience here. Can you talk a little bit more about scratch paper? Just generally what is provided at the test center? Is there any chance that people will get whiteboards? How many booklets of scratch paper can you ask for? You know, kind of what happens in that scratch paper request?
Absolutely. During the check-in process, candidates will receive a booklet of scratch paper. It's about 5 to 6 pages of scratch paper along with a pencil. Now, when you finish using the scratch paper, all you need to do is raise your hand and the text proctor will come by your desk and they'll provide you with a replacement for that scratch paper booklet. They will take that first booklet away from you and just give you the second one. At the end of your test, you'll need to return all the scratch paper to the test center administrator. And some people are asking questions about receiving a whiteboard. If you prefer a whiteboard, you can request one. If that's what's offered to you at the test center, you can still request a scratch booklet from them. That's one of the things that we have as a requirement for our exam, is for them to provide you with a scratch paper booklet.
Thank you, Eric. It looks like we had some questions early on about taking an unscheduled break. You know, if you have to use the restroom or you don't bring in your water bottle to your test, your computer, and you need to grab a drink of water. Can you talk a little bit more about what an unscheduled break means?
Sure. So during your exam, there's one scheduled break, and that's the 40-minute break between section 1 and section 2. If at any time during your exam you need to take a restroom break, just notify your proctor that you need to take a break, and they'll initiate a checkout procedure for the unscheduled break. And you could use this break to go to the restroom or get a drink of water. During this break, you're not permitted to access your locker at all. You're only allowed to access your locker during the scheduled 40-minute break between sections. Please note that when you take an unscheduled break, that clock doesn't stop. The testing time continues to go. So it can be a bit of a wait checking in. Let's say, for example, if multiple people take breaks at the same time. So bear that in mind. But you can absolutely take an unscheduled break at any time during the exam.
Thanks, Eric. And along with that, or similar vein of question, we have a couple people asking about what is allowed to be brought into your test. Can you talk a little bit more about what is and what isn't allowed? I know that we mentioned that a water bottle is allowed, a clear water bottle. Are there specifics? Does it have to be kind of more on the disposable side? Can it be just any type of clear water bottle? And I think that would be helpful to clarify.
Right. So what you can bring into the test center, you can bring in a clear water bottle where you remove the wrapper on the disposable water bottle, so that you can actually take a sip of water while you're taking the test. This is allowed in the test center. The other thing you're allowed to bring in is extra batteries for your calculator in case the calculator batteries die out. You will need to bring in loose batteries. They recommend you wrap this up in tissue paper going into the test center, and it will be inspected before you're allowed to bring it in to the room. And then also, if you're sick and you have a cold, tissue paper is allowed to be brought in. It will be inspected, so you could use that at your work center.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question that we have here is just confirming the pass-fail result. Can you talk a little bit about when someone would expect to receive a preliminary and official result?
Absolutely. So after you complete your test, the end of the test will be followed up by a brief survey. And once that survey is complete, on screen, you'll see an initial result that will indicate pass or fail. Also, what will happen is within the first 10 to 15 minutes of completing your test, you'll receive an email result, which will be your preliminary result. So it will look very much like the final result, but it'll indicate that's preliminary. Now, what CFP Board and Prometric will do is there'll be a number of quality assurance checks that are run on the data for the exam and all the results for people. And following this quality assurance review, in about 4 weeks after the end of the exam window, you'll receive your final results once they're confirmed. So again, that's about 4 weeks from the end of the exam window.
Thank you. A couple of questions on a little bit of the structure of the exam, how the domains are spread across. So Eric, the first question is about case studies. Can you talk more about the case study structure and when people would expect or how they would expect to see that? And then also, well, I guess once you answer that, I have another question that's similar for you.
Sure. So, like the webinar stated, there's three kinds of question types. There's the case study question, where there's this big case with about 8 to 12 questions per case study. You can expect this within section 1. It'll either be in section 1A or 1B. Now, there's going to be smaller scenario-based questions that are structured similar to the case study, but this will be typically like 3 questions, um, 2 to 3 questions, and these could be anywhere in the exam, from section 1 or section 2. And then there's the standalone questions. They're just your basic multiple choice question that's all over. What was the follow-up question on that, Amanda?
So the structure of the case study, I think, is super helpful to have reviewed. And then the spread of the domains. We have a question about, are the questions kind of all jumbled up between the domains across the entire exam? Should people expect to see certain domains at certain times? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. The domains. So the domains, you're not going to receive the test according to the order of the domains, starting with professional conduct and going from A to H into psychology, financial planning. The questions will be presented in a random order, and it could cover any of these domains at any time. So be prepared to answer one question to another. They're not going to be delivered in any specific order.
Talking a little bit more about the exam software, can you talk a little bit about what you are provided as part of that? So we have some questions about, are you provided with formulas, tax tables, or any sort of built-in calculator?
Yes, exam software. This is very important. So, what I recommend is we do have a sample exam that's available through our webpage. And what this will allow you to do is go through the interface and see what it looks like. So you can see the structure of the exam. It will show you all the resources that you have, and you can actually use the tutorial to learn the strikeout features and the highlighting features. But there's also going to be some key components that are available. So in a case study, there'll be a case study button there, where if you click the button, the case study will appear on screen as a pop-up, and usually it splits the screen. And then you could view the PDF of the case study. If there's no case study associated with the question, you're not going to see that case study button appear. But also in the interface, there's going to be a calculator button, which is a basic function calculator. And then as a resource, we also have a resource for some formulas that you might need to answer the question. And there will also be tax tables, and examples of the tax tables are available on our website and in the resources section. You'll also see this as a pop-up where you could go through the tax tables that cover limits for retirement plans, or the different levels of taxing for filing single or jointly. You'll see all that in the tax tables, and the tax table that's associated with your exam, that's available in the resources section of our website if you wanted to view that. Or you'll also be able to see it in the sample exam that we have available for review.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. And just to clarify, we do have the tax tables and formulas available on our exam resources page on cfp.net. So you can use those as you are studying, but just note that you cannot have physical copies of the tax tables and formulas with you at the testing center. All of that will be provided on screen.
Yes, Amanda, that's great that you bring that up. Every year we get people complaining about this because some prep provider tells you guys to go print it out, or ask them to print it out for you at the test center. If you do this, they will not do that. They will not print out those formula sheets for you. They will only be available as on-screen resources. Another thing that I forgot to note is that it will also be available in your practice tests. So you also have a chance to view the resources and become familiar with them there.
Thank you, Eric. I think that's so helpful. We have a couple of questions about the 40-minute break that I think will be helpful to clarify. The first is, can you leave the building during your 40-minute break? And then the second is, is this break mandatory? And if you don't take the full 40 minutes, do you get extra time added to the rest of your exam?
Yeah, so the 40-minute break, this is really important to think about where your test center is located. what resources you have available nearby. If you're planning to grab lunch during your 40-minute break, is it even feasible to leave the building? But yes, the answer is you are permitted to leave the building during your 40-minute break. You'll be checked out. Now, what will happen is once the 40 minutes is up, your exam will actually start automatically. So you want to make sure you have your timing right. You don't exceed that 40-minute window. Now you can choose to shorten that. Let's say if you're ready and you want to go, and maybe 15 minutes, you've finished using the bathroom and you're ready to go, you can end that 40-minute break early to start your exam, but you will not receive extra time to add on to your second section. It'll still be a 3-hour section.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric. I think that's so helpful. A couple questions about the coursework verification that's required to sit for the exam versus the degree requirement, Eric. These are some questions that I think are just really important for people to understand what exactly is required to sit for the exam, especially by that February 25th deadline for the March exam.
Yes, absolutely. I saw some confusion about this in the question and answer section. What you need to know here is the education requirements are a two-part process. The first part is the requirement to sit for the exam. In order to sit for the exam, you need to complete a registered program through a registered program provider. Now, there are some alternative pathways out there for people that have certain certifications, but for the most part, in order to be eligible to take the exam, you need to complete the registered program. And so for more information on that, you can check the education section of our webpage. Now, the second part of this is once you've submitted your registered program requirement and you receive an eligibility to take the exam, once you complete and pass the exam, in order to become certified, you need to complete what's called the bachelor's degree requirement. And what you need to do is prove that you've achieved a bachelor's degree from an accredited university here in the United States in order to become certified. That's one of the pieces that's required after exam completion. So the first one is just to be eligible. And if you haven't taken a registered program and completed it, please make sure you complete that before the ed verification deadline. But then after all that is said and done and you've taken the exam, you still need to provide proof that you've completed a bachelor's degree from a university.
Thanks, Eric. I think that's so helpful. One other question on moving back and forth between sections. Can you talk a little bit about how the abilities that are provided to candidates? Can you move back and forth within a section? So can you skip a question? And then if you skip questions and move on to the next section, can you go back to previous sections? Can you talk a little bit more about how that structure is?
Yes, as we mentioned, the exam is really 4 parts. It's 4 subsections, right? The first 2 parts are before the 40-minute break, and the second 2 sections are after the 40-minute break. Now, when you're within that subsection, let's say, for example, 1A, like we mentioned early in the webinar, you're able to navigate anywhere within there. You can skip questions. You can even mark them for review and come back to them. But once you complete that section and you go from 1A to 1B, you're not going to be able to go back and change any of your answers in section 1A. So within the section, you're able to navigate within that first 43 questions. Once you submit it, you're on to section 1B and you can't go back. Same thing for 1B. You can navigate anywhere in there, mark it, go back to it for review. But once you submit that, you have to move on to section 2A.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's helpful to understand. The session timer that shows on the top of the screen, is that for total time for session 1A and 1B or just session 1A only?
So this is a good point. I'm glad you're bringing it up. The section timer is actually a dual function, and you can click on it to toggle between 2. There's one timer for the total time remaining in your appointment. So this means if you add up the tutorial, section 1, 40-minute break, section 2, and then the survey at the end, that's your total time remaining. If you click on the button and you can toggle to the section time, whatever section you're in, this tells you how much more time you have left in section 1 or section 2 of the exam.
Perfect. I hope that clarifies for the individual who asked that question. A couple questions we've received on earplugs or earmuffs, and bringing your own pen and pencil. Just kind of some more questions, I think, once we had answered that question initially that came in. So,
Right.
can you bring in your own earplugs? Can you bring in your own pen or pencil? Kind of, or does the test center provide all of that for you?
Yes. So the thing here is Prometric's really concerned with security. So one of the things that we have implemented is you're not allowed to bring in your own headphones or noise canceling headphones or headsets or earplugs. But what you can do is you can request it from Prometric, and they'll be able to provide you with some that they have available at their test center. Same goes with scratch paper and your own pencil and pen. You can't bring your own into the center. That will be provided for you as well.
And thank you, Eric. I think that's helpful. We also had one other question that about calculators that I think is helpful. Can individuals take in backup calculators, dummy calculators, or just kind of like simple calculators outside of a financial calculator?
Yes, so you can bring in up to 2 calculators. Both of them need to be approved calculators from our approved calculator list. Or if you want to bring one of them in that's going to be a basic function calculator, meaning you cannot store any information in there, then yes, you can bring in 2. Maybe one is your financial calculator and the other one is a basic function, or they could be 2 financial calculators as long as they're both on the approved calculator list.
Perfect. Thank you. Eric, any other questions that you have seen that you think might be helpful to answer? I know we have a couple questions about the practice exam, or just other resources, just in terms of functionality. The one thing that I will say is that the CFP Board practice exam, the 170 question practice exam, is complimentary to everybody once you register for the exam, the first CFP Board practice exam. And so I highly encourage you all to use that. It will 100% give you confidence going into exam day because it truly is a replica of what you will see at the testing center. The software, the functionality, all of that will be the same. So I think it's a great way to become familiar with that. And like Jenna mentioned, the 10 question sample exam is also available for you. And that really more will give you a quicker view of functionality. But the practice exam will actually provide the score report for you at the end. And it's a great way to put yourself in the situation of taking the exam. Make sure you reserve 7 hours and actually put yourself in the mindset of exam day. But Eric, any other items on your end that you've seen that maybe I've missed?
Yeah, so one thing that we want to clarify with scratch paper is we do have 2 modes for taking the test. You could either take it at a Prometric test center, or for some people that want to take it from home if they're not able to get to a test center, those are it's called remote test taking. It's done through Prometric through an online interface. Anyone that's taking the test from a remote modality will not be able to use scratch paper. Instead, there's going to be an on-screen scratch pad, very much like a simple Word app on your computer. It doesn't have much functionality. You can't draw there. It's only text-based, and you can type letters and numbers in there. So that's one main difference between the remote test takers and people that are taking it at the Prometric test centers. People in test centers will receive scratch paper. People that are taking it remotely will not have that benefit.
We have one question here about coming to the end of a section. Do you have to click on the finish section button for answers to be recorded? Or if the timer ends the section without clicking the section button, will the answers be recorded? I'm sorry, Eric.
No, that's fine. This is a really good question because it always comes up. Every time you submit the question and move on to another question, that's recorded your answer. It's not like all the things are recorded once you submit the button for the section. So um, as you're going through the test, as you click A, B, C, or D, and then you go to the next question, that's recording your answer. And then, of course, the only thing that happens once you click the submit the section button is you can't go back and change those. And between each of the subsections, there's actually a dual confirmation that occurs. They ask you, are you sure you want to submit this section? And they ask you again before you're allowed to go on to the next section. So yes, that's how it transpires, is you will actually prompt them that you're done with the section and you're ready to move on to the section. Now, the other point of your question is that if you run out of time, for section 1, meaning you have 3 hours to complete section 1A and 1B, so pay attention to your timing. If you go past that 3 hours and you're still on section 1A, then we have a problem, because that is going to move you on to section 2. So please be very aware, section 1A and 1B combined need to be completed within the first 3 hours. So be mindful of your time. That section timer means you need to progress through 1A and 1B within that 3 hour allotted time frame.
Perfect, thank you. Clarification on ID and names. So one, I saw a question earlier, if my name is, Matt, but my ID says Matthew, is that any sort of issue? But also if my ID has my name as, a junior, but my CFP board account doesn't, does that have any impact?
Yes, so this is a very important question, because the name variants aren't so much of a problem, neither is the junior or the senior. I mean, you do need to match that, but what you need to do is also make sure that your ID that you're bringing, that's a government issued ID with a picture on it, is valid. We will receive those calls the day of the test. People are frantic. They've been told that they're not allowed to test because they have an expired license, and then they might have to run home and get their passport. So please be sure that whatever ID you're going to use on test day is still valid as of March 18th through the 25th. Name variants don't matter, but if your nickname is Chip and you use that for registration and Richard is on your license plate, please contact us to make sure the name you registered with matches what's exactly on your driver's license. So it just needs to be first and last name. We don't really present your middle name there. But name variants such as Matt or Matthew or Daniel and Dan, that's not an issue. But if it's something that's not a name variant, if you go by Karen and your real name is Joan on your license and Karen's your middle name, then please have that fixed and make sure that license is valid and up to date when you take the exam.
Eric, I think in our last few minutes here, just a couple other questions. One on the practice exam that I think is going to be helpful to clarify. Can you talk a little bit more just about the practice exam itself? How many times can people take it? What do you receive after you take the practice exam? I know I went over a little bit, but I think it'd be helpful if you also have, some more information about that you can provide that will be helpful, because I think that is a really great resource for people to understand that they have access to.
Yes, so I think the most important thing to understand about the practice exam is it's there to serve as a simulation for the live exam, a mock exam, if you will. It's not really there for you to spend a lot of time looking at questions and looking solutions. It's there for you to mimic real life testing conditions within a 6-hour period. So you're going to want to plan a big block of time when you take the mock exam, and it's really a simulation. So once you start it, it's going to be timed and it's going to simulate real testing conditions. There's the same amount of questions on that practice exam as are on the live exam. The way you navigate through each section is the same, as well as your readiness to validate you're ready to move on to the next section. The only difference between the two is the practice exam. There is a button on each question that offers you a solution if you're not sure about your answer, and you can view that when you're viewing the question. Once you submit that practice exam for completion, you're not going to be able to go back and look at all of the solutions, but you will receive a score report that shows how you performed across the domains. But this is a wonderful tool. If you look at some of the other test prep providers, you'll notice when you look at their practice questions and you take the questions on the CFP board exam, they're not necessarily going to be the same style or even the way the questions are phrased. But our practice exam is probably the closest approximation you'll have to viewing what the live CFP board exam questions look like. So we highly recommend for you to go look at that as a resource, become familiar with the interface so that on exam day, you're not learning those little tricks of how you navigate it or how you highlight or strike out the questions. You're going to be familiar with the interface. That way you can focus solely on the content of the exam and how you're going to best answer those questions.
Thank you, Eric. I don't know that I have too many other questions that we haven't answered already. If there is anything specific that maybe we've missed, I highly recommend directing those questions directly to examinations@cfpboard.org, the email address you see here on your screen. And the exams team, Eric, Jenna, James, and Ibi can help answer those questions. I think that we've tried to accomplish answering every question available. But again, if there is something that I missed, please reach out to us directly at examinations@cfpboard.org, and we're more than happy to help you on this path to studying for the exam. This webinar will be available here within the week. Everybody who is registered, we will send out a link to the webinar so you have access to this and you know exactly where to find it on our YouTube page. But again, if you have any questions, please reach out, and I hope everyone has a great day.